is it maybe?
The same printer, right? Yesterday what we used.
Yes, the same. The same as yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a problem with okay. No, no. No, this is not this one. And sorry for that, my computer doesn't work today. Okay, we'll speak about fretting. Then I will first present you the basic trends for fretting wear, fretting fatigue, and we will mostly focus on contact mechanics. First, how to calculate shear distribution within the contact, and we'll do some exploration of fretting wear. We will not speak about fretting fatigue or fretting crack propagation. Then we'll present you the wear model, and of course the context of fretting, the wear model, and we'll speak about gross slip and partial slip, or what we call also stick slip. For us, the main concern is the attachment between the blade and the disc, which is a very sensitive contact. You have to know that it is possible to have a failure of the blade because the engine is designed for that. Then if there is any blade failure, normally the blade is contained by the chamber of the engine, and the blade will flow away from the engine. Of course, it will destroy the engine, but there is no catastrophic failure. I remember a few years ago, it was a catastrophic failure for the first fan, the one that you can see, the first stage of the fan, and the blade moved away in front of the engine, and the plane was flying. Then it means that the blade went against the wind. Okay, and the blade went to the aircraft, broke a window, and somebody was aspirated by the window. And in fact, the lady died on the way back to the airport. But normally, when you have a failure of the blade, it's not catastrophic. It's all engines and planes are certified for that. What you should avoid absolutely is a crack in the disc, because this is forbidden. If you have a crack in the disc will explode in several parts, and there is no way to contain the debris. Then the debris will cross the engine and will cut the plane. Then it's not forbidden. However, it already happened. I remember an Australian airplane with an Airbus 380, one of the first one going to Australia. One of the turbines exploded, and it was a catastrophic failure for the. But it was no injury. They were able to land the plane. It took 2 hours to stop one of the engine. A lot of debris damaged the hydraulic circuit, and then it was almost impossible to have the plane flying. Hopefully, it was in the plane 1 or 2 instructors, and they were able to manage to land the flight in a small island on the way. And the accident came from a small oil pipe that was vibrating. It was some fretting between the pipe and the holding of the pipe. And after a while, that broke the pipe. The oil was starting to leak in the hot chamber nearby the turbine. oil take fire, and then the temperature of the hottest disk started to increase, and then the disk started to expand and exploded. It was the origin of the accident. Okay, then the fretting is typically, normally it's a small oscillatory movement. Then we have two regimes. Then you have normally this is for a given. The classical mode is for a given normal load. For example, for the blade you have two modes. You have okay, we'll say that later. Okay, you have a constant load, and then you have some oscillation, either due to the force or because there is some displacement. Then we have two regimes. The first one is the partial regime. This plot Q represents the tangential load. Okay, and delta means the tangential displacement. Then delta and Q are in the same direction. Usually this is the x direction, but anyway. Then when you can see this type of loop, it means that you have no gross sliding. In fact, one part of the contact is sticking, and you have some sliding, as I explained yesterday, only at the border of the contact. Here it is sliding, and at the middle, this is sticking. Okay. And now, if you have larger displacement, you will have gross slip. Then all this area will be sliding, and typically the fretting loop is like that. Sometimes you may have, during the life of the component, you may switch from partial slip to gross slip, or you may switch from gross slip to partial slip. That's possible. I will show you here that if you change the mode, you need to add some assumptions, such as the friction coefficient is not constant. If the friction coefficient is constant, I will show you that we are always in the same mode. Okay, for a given normal load. Another point which is very important is that I will make a distinction between applying a normal load or a normal displacement. This is not the same. At the beginning it's the same, of course, because you can apply either the load or the displacement. But imagine that you have a pin fretting on a plane. If you impose a displacement, you will have at the beginning a lot of wear. And because the wear will diminish the length of the cylinder, after a while there is almost no contact. And if there is no contact, there is no load. What I would like to say is that if you impose a displacement, the load will be very high when you have no wear, and as the wear progresses, the load will decrease. Okay? Then this is why applying a load or a displacement is not the same. Then what is well known is this map. Typically, Fouvry is one of the most well-known researchers working on that. It's mostly a guy from material science, and he's mostly interested by experiments and by the physics behind that, coupling between oxidation and a lot of things. Then on the left, when you have a small displacement along the x, small oscillations, you are in this regime. In fact, okay, normally you should have okay, when you have that, this is only elastic, purely elastic. There is no fretting. When you have some area which is sliding, you should have this type of loop. I don't know why this is okay. It should be like that. Then here this is a partial slip regime. Here this is a mixed slip regime. You can switch from a gross slip to partial slip, and here it's only the gross slip regime. Then the damage which is associated with that is the following. Then on the left side, you have here no damage. In fact, it's you have no fretting. All the area is sticking, and then and the load is quite moderate. Then you have no damage. In this area, the main mode of failure is cracking. Why? This is because now you have some notion on Hertz contact theories, and when you have the contact like that, even if you have some part here, which is here, it is sliding, for example, and here it is sticking. If you remember the stress distribution at the surface, you have a maximum tensile stress here and here. Okay, and typically this one, we have seen that yesterday. Sigma RR is typically about 1/10 of the maximum Hertz contact pressure. Then we'll have crack that will initiate here, like that. Okay, then this is a typical mode of failure. Now, if you are in this regime, it means that you will have here you will have some gross slip. Okay, either at the beginning or at the end, or always. And it means that if you have some gross slip, the sphere or the cylinder will move here, or will move here. Okay. And the consequence is that if the crack is very small, like that, if you have some wear, it will be beneficial, because the wear can remove the crack. Then in the technology of aircraft engines, they managed to have a very high friction coefficient, and they managed to be with a mixed mode or with a gross slip regime in order to remove the crack. Okay. Then when you design a turbine engine, you avoid to be in this domain where you have crack nucleation and propagation. Okay, this is what you have to keep in mind as the first order. And then it's normal to have wear, and this is designed like that. Now there is classically there is three modes of fretting. Mode 1, which is the classical one. Then you have just tangential movement, oscillatory tangential movement. The mode 2, okay, a lot of people are working on mode 1, only on the first one. This is when you have just an oscillating normal load. Okay? And this one is when you have some torsional oscillating load. Today I'm working for a US company making blade attachment device, in fact for turbo propellers and for the blades. It's like a wind turbine, the same. You have two bearings at the bottom, and due to the load on the blade, you have vibrations. You have the effect of the air, the portents of the air playing on the blade, and because the blade may rotate, in fact, they have all the modes together. And for the contact between the ball and the ring, they have both oscillatory normal load, they have some displacement, and also some torque. We have all these modes present. Then, but usually we have only one mode. If we go back to the blade and disc attachment problem, there is two types of loading. The first one is takeoff and landing. This is one cycle. Okay, then you accelerate the engine. This is now at the maximum speed. You have the cruise flight, and then you land. And this is only one cycle. Okay. Then for that, the load is changing a lot, from 0 to the maximum load to a few tons, due to centrifugal force. Okay, and here there's a lot of sliding everywhere. This is mostly gross sliding, and after, when you are in cruise flight, what happens is that you have a lot of small oscillations due to vibration, in fact. And for this one, it can be at high frequency. Then you have billions of cycles here, and here you have only one cycle if the flight is 10 hours, you have only one cycle for 10 hours. Then you have a competition between these two modes. Then with the same technique, you can deal with the two problems. Then this one, takeoff and landing, is what we call the low cycle fatigue, and high cycle fatigue is the one with small oscillations at a high frequency. Okay, and then as it is explained, at low frequency, in fact, during landing and takeoff, only one cycles. We have gross slip, then we have wear, and if some small cracks appear during high frequency cycles here, you may remove it. This is the principle. Okay, then this is what I said before. Then to do that in companies are mostly finite element method. The partners we are working for, they are using our technique, and they use it as a pre-stage design also because it's very fast and they can do parametric studies. Okay, then this is the principle. Then now this configuration, we will consider that this is this geometry with a punch, with a rounded end, with like that, and we have all this effort, normal force, tangential force, and the torque. Here. Okay. Of course, for our model, we do not consider the structural behavior. It's only localized at the contact problem. Okay, then what I will show you here, it's only localized at the contact problem. But you have to know that we have some work in course, typically a PhD work, and we are able to analytically consider the structural deformation, centrifugal force, thermal effect, and also we can consider several contacts because for the turbine blade and disc attachment, you have I don't know how do you call that in English, but you have a shape with many contacts like that. Then we apply our method to this type of geometry. But this is in development, and the result will be published soon, but still under development. Then for the contact, we will use our contact solver, and we'll show you how we can simulate wear. Okay, then maybe a small point about that. We do not simulate each wear cycle. People are also doing that using the finite element method. This is the same technique. We use what we call a jump cycle. Jump cycle means that, for example, if you calculate that the wear is 10 nanometer, and you have 1 billion cycles, you don't have to simulate 1 billion cycles when you remove each time 10 nanometers. What we do is that we estimate the depths that we can remove at the same time without perturbating the numerical convergence. It can be, for example, one micrometer. And then if we find 10 nanometers of wear, we multiply by 100. And we say that instead of removing 10 nanometer, we will remove 1 micrometer. And instead of adding 1 cycle, we add 100 cycles. Okay, this is the jump cycle technique that other people are also using. Now, how to estimate the wear depth, because we want to estimate the wear depth. In fact, we consider the energy which is dissipated within the contact, and the energy is obtained by calculating the area in the fretting loop here. Okay, if you multiply then the load by the distance, you have the energy dissipated. When you multiply a load by a speed, you have the power, and the load by a distance, you have the energy. Then this is the energy dissipated. And now you need to perform tests to estimate the wear coefficient. and you calculate the energy that has been put to the system, and with that you can calculate the wear coefficient. And typically you need a coefficient which is a wear coefficient, and you need to calculate the total energy dissipated, and I will show you it's possible here. This is the volume, which is the wear volume, and now if you know the surface you can apply that to a given point. In what I will show you, we do not consider the debris effect because you create debris. And for example, if you have a gross slip, when you have debris within the contact, you will push away the debris. Then normally your contact is always clean. Okay. If you do experiments, now if you have a stick slip, there is a small part in the middle which is sticking, and you may keep some debris inside. And if the debris are coming into the sticking area, if they are coming in the center here, they will start to separate the surface, and they will act as a lubricant, because solid debris act as a lubricant. Then you may modify the friction coefficient, and you may also start to slide here. This is why sometimes you can move from a mixed stick slip regime to a gross slip regime due to the debris effect. If you are interested by the effect of debris, there is a nice paper by Vamshi Don, published a few years ago. He managed to, in Ursolver, to consider the balance of debris formation and ejection, and he was able to predict how many, the percentage of debris staying in the contact, and we were able to consider that. This is what we call the effect of debris ejection. Okay, then this is typically a very simple model. I like this one because it's simple and it gives you a lot of information. Maybe the main message of today will be that wear can be good, and it will give you the optimum surface geometry. And this is a technique that has been used by GE. I know that for other applications. The idea is how to define for a very complicated shape. It was a valve within a cylinder chamber, and the seat between the valve and the seat, and with coatings and so on. They were able, using this technique, to design the optimum geometry to minimize wear. What will happen is that if you take you can also imagine that you have a cylinder with a rough surface, which is not very cylindrical and so on. If you start to wear the cylinder, you will have at the end the optimum geometry that will minimize wear. And you can apply that for that, for example. Okay, then delta H at the bottom means the wear depth. For each point, we will calculate what is the wear depth, which is a function of the energy dissipated. Then the tau means the shear stress, S means the sliding, then this is an energy, and this is multiplied by a coefficient, which is a wear coefficient. And the shear stress depends on the friction coefficient that here we will consider constant. Note that delta star means the maximum tangential displacement. You have some dimension, but it's not very important. It can be done without. Okay. And then here is another way to write the wear depth with gamma, the first coefficient, which is the wear coefficient, and then here you can consider the tangential displacement. Delta 0 is the amplitude, in fact, and starting from 0 to the maximum, from 0 to the minimum minus delta 0. Okay, then this is the equation that will give you the wear depth at each point, depending then on the, okay, you have the volume, the wear volume, and it's possible by some manipulation to know what happened for a given point. Okay. Then something else which is interesting is that for the problem you can have different type of inputs. you can have load, moments, or displacement and rotation. This is the same, in fact. Or you may have any combination. For example, you can impose the three loads, P, Qx, Qy, the tensile force in different directions, and you can also impose rotation. Okay. And everything is possible. This corresponds to the same thing. Okay, then you said that before. I said that before. Then we use the same type of equation to solve the contact problem. Then if you do simulation, the same if you try to do that by finite element method, maybe if you can have a room with computers, tomorrow we'll try to do the problem with in 2D plane. We can try to solve that with the finite element method. Then when you have a partial slip, there is no problem. You can impose what you want, force or displacement, torque or rotation, because there is always a limit. Okay. Now, if you are in the gross slip regime, you cannot impose a torque or a force. Why? Because if you impose a force, you will reach the gross slip regime. And remember, when you have a block like that, and you apply then here tangential force and a normal load, if Qx reach the friction coefficients times the normal load, the block will move at the infinite. There is no way to stop him. Okay? Then, if you have gross slip regime, there is two solutions. The first one is to impose not a force but a displacement, 1 millimeter, 1 meter. It will stop after that. Or you may also impose an energy, because energy is a force by the distance. Then it's the same. You impose a distance, but do not try to impose a force, because it will not converge. Then this is a three situation. You can impose an energy, or you can impose a displacement. Also something interesting is that because bodies are elastic, even if it is sticking, you have a displacement. If you impose the tensile load, you have a small displacement due to the stiffness of the material, to the elasticity of the material. Okay, then these are the equations that we have to solve, which depends on the Dunders constant. What I would like to say here is that, for example, if you consider the Z will be the normal to the surface, okay, then here you have direction here is Z, this is X. Now, under the load, the surface will deform like that, to be symmetric. Okay. Then this point is moving like that, which is UZ. And you can see that, for example, for this point, I will exaggerate, but this point will move this way. Okay? Then there is an effect of the normal load on the tangential displacement. Normally, both in X and Y direction. Okay? And the same in the reverse way. If you impose, okay, you have now this. You add the effect of shear stress or shear force at this point. You can see that for this point, for example, it will move slightly in this direction, and then this point will affect the displacement along the Z direction. Then normally you have all these parameters that play a role all together, and especially when you have two different materials. When they are the same, the displacement is very small, but when you have different materials, for example, rubber against steel, it will be very sensitive. Then normally, when you have the same materials, in fact, you may have some simplification. Then these are the equations that you can use when you have the same materials. You may neglect these components. This is what a lot of people are doing classically, but then you have no full coupling between the two problems. The Dunder's constant is varying between minus 0.5 and minus plus 5. I will show you this constant. This is a don't know if you can see. Okay. Then in fact G is linked to the Young modulus. You know, it's an elastic constant. Then G is linked to E. Then it's the same. Then for example here you have steel. Then you have two steel material here that are the same. Then when you have two identical materials, beta, the Dunder's constant equals 0. Okay. When you have two different materials and when one is incompressible, no, then yes, here both are incompressible. Then the new coefficients Poisson ratio is equal to 0.5. You have also 0 for this one. Now let's consider something which is here, the contact between some ideal materials. The first one is steel but incompressible, like plastic steel, plasticized steel. And okay, and this one is nu equals 0. You can see the value of the Dunder's constant. And when you invert the two materials, body 1 and body 2, you have a plus or minus. Then the plus or minus is not important. The sign is not important. And now to have the maximum value or the minimum value, what you should do is you should have a rigid body. If you have a rigid body, then the rigid body here is body 2. You have a very high Young modulus. If you have a rigid body against a rubber material, which is incompressible, this is the same in fact. Okay, you reach 0.5 or minus 0.5. Okay, then this is how we can calculate the Dunder's constant. Now, in our model, in fact, we consider three types of coupling. The first one, we don't have any coupling. This is then the simpler, the faster way to do a wear simulation. This is an approximation when you have the same elastic properties for both materials. We consider that the displacement along the x direction depends only on the shear along the x direction. Displacement at the surface along the y direction depends only on the shear along the y direction. You can see here the influence coefficient, k, which are in fact the green functions. And for the z parameters, we neglect what I plotted on the table, on the blackboard, consider only the pressure, normal pressure. Now, if you want to have some coupling, and if you have the same materials, this is what I presented before, you need to consider both effects. This is the real solution. To explain you in fact this is the surface of the material. You apply a shear load like that, and I think it's small, for example Qx. Then there is a displacement for this point, which is ux, and on this line, if you plot the y displacement, then you have a curve like that. Okay, this is this point, and you can see that, for example, again, this point will move here, this way. Then you have as though you have a small displacement like that. Okay, then this is why we have to consider the displacement along the transverse direction. And now, if you want to deal with completely different materials, you need to consider all these terms. Okay, then it's a little longer to find the solution. In fact, you should have a copy of all the slides. I just added these 3 ones, but normally you should have a copy of all the slides. Okay, now to solve the contact, we have several equations to solve. I will not describe them in detail, but the 2 first set of equations are very classical. In fact, it is in the contact area, the pressure is not nil, but the gap is nil because you have contact. And outside, the pressure is nil, but the gap is not nil. This is only what we translate by that. After we have to perform equilibrium of the systems, and we have to deal with normal load equilibrium by the pressure distribution, and also we have equilibrium of the shear stress and frictional torque. Okay, and also yes, and this is also the when you do simulation of fretting, you have to be careful of something which is okay, this is the pressure distribution. This is the initial one. You may have, after a given time, when you have some wear, you can have something which is not symmetric anymore. Okay, that's possible. It depends because, for example, if you have a geometry which is not perfectly symmetric and so on, or for different reasons, you may have that. Then if you have that, it means that you do not impose the equilibrium of the torque. Okay. Of course, here you have the same for the 2 situations here. You can say that the pressure over the surface area give you the same normal load, but you have to deal with also with the torque. For example, the torque around this axis. Okay, then normally you should impose that. This is just a small warning about that. You should be careful. Then now, if we consider the shear stress, okay, there is many more equations, and mostly we have to consider the Coulomb friction, which is always the same. If the shear stress is smaller than the friction coefficient times the contact pressure, this is sticking. And if Q equal mu times the pressure, it is sliding. Then you just have to transfer that into equations. And you cannot have sliding and sticking at the same time. This is why here you can see the sliding area and the sticking area. Sliding plus sticking area correspond to the contact area. Okay, there is no intersection of the 2. Okay. And these are the same equations in the full slip regime, or in the gross slip regime there is some simplification. Okay, then now I will show you some results. Then for this simulation we will impose here a normal load. Then the normal load is a little more than 300 Newton. Okay. No, the normal load here, this is not the normal load, this is the normal load multiplied by the friction coefficient. Then I don't know the value here. The normal load is 400 Newton. And then the friction coefficient should be maybe 0.6 or something like that. And then the dot, the square symbols correspond to the tangential load, which is lower than this point. Okay, then because it is lower, it is partial slip, of course. And then we start the point 0 correspond to the origin. When we load until the point A', this is the first movement in one direction. Then we are here, A', A. Then we reverse the movement to go back, to go forward. Then B', B. B here is when we have no tangential displacement, tangential load, but we have a small displacement in fact. Then you go back to the opposite side to C, and then after that you come back again here, C, then D is this point, B, D, and when you go back to the end, you have at the point E. And now if there is nowhere, if the friction coefficient is constant, we will have always this loop like that. Okay, and you can calculate the energy which is within the curve. So this area corresponds to the energy dissipated per each cycle. Okay, then on the left you have the full solution. Then I already plotted something like that yesterday or the day before. Okay, then the black curve, the full line here, correspond to the the contact pressure times the friction coefficient. And at the bottom, this is the opposite, because you are going one direction in the opposite direction. Then, okay, this is the first curve here corresponds to this one, and this one at the bottom corresponds to the second. Okay, then the dashed line corresponds to the numerical solution, then which agree with the theory, which is normal. And you have here for different points A first. Okay, A dash, which is the red one here. Then at the beginning you have. Then this is mu p. Then okay, and this is for this is a q x at point A dash. Okay, and this point, which is in the middle, for example, of this curve. Then now, if you increase again the tangential load, you will reach this point. Then you are here. Then this one corresponds to Qx for point A. Okay, this is the maximum. And now, when you have a reverse movement, you will move to point B dash, this one. Then you will be up. You will be here. This is a pink curve. In fact. Then if I plot minus p times the friction coefficient, from this point, you will have something which is like in this, I don't know what is plotted here, but okay. Okay, we have this curve. This is Qx for B dash. And when we reach, yes, we need. Yes, we need to leave at what time now? 11:30. No, because the bus is coming, is leaving at 50 or?
No, 11:30.
Okay, then no.
Yeah, so we can continue.
Yes, yes.
There also we have a projector. We can continue.
Okay, but also we can work on Abacus and I can continue later. Okay. Okay.
So would you like all of them to work on Abacus today?
So there
Maybe by 2.
yes, there are about 16 computers.
Yes, by
that are
2.
loaded with Abacus. Each computer can be shared with 2 participants.
Because the idea is to try to do a model that we can use both to do that. Maybe tomorrow. And today just elastic plastic simulation. And we'll see that to get this solution by Abacus is complicated. It's not easy. And the quality is not very good. But okay, this is okay. Then I.
So as I mentioned, they can work even after officers and get the approval.
And
They get time.
okay, then do I let? I will let this one. I will take my computer with me.
Yes, you can take
Okay.
So we'll go. I'll take you to.
But my key is here. Okay, I take my computer and this one stay here.
Yes, we can leave this here.
Okay. Okay. So is my